The morning shift had just begun aboard the United Earth Defense Station when the impossible happened. Admiral Hyenwu Park was reviewing routine patrol reports when his communications officer suddenly went pale. The young man stared at his screen like he had seen a ghost. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," the officer said, his voice shaking. "It is not from any Earth vessel or colony." Hyenwu set down his coffee cup and walked over to the communications station. In his 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like what appeared on the screen. The signal was unlike any human technology, pulsed with strange colors and geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move on their own. "Where is it coming from?" Hyenwu asked. "Unknown, sir. The signal is somehow bypassing all our security systems. Is broadcasting on every frequency at once." Before Hyenwu could respond, the patterns on the screen began to change. They formed into the shape of a tall, crystalline being that seemed to be made of living glass. The creature's voice filled the command center with a sound like wind, chimes in a storm. "I am Ambassador Veltheri of the Nexus Consortium. I speak for the Galactic Interstellar Council. You will listen." The entire command center fell silent. Every human on the station stopped what they were doing and stared at the screen. This was first contact with alien life, something humanity had dreamed about for centuries. "People of Earth," Veltheri continued, "your species has been observed. You have been measured. You have been found wanting." Hyenwu felt his blood run cold. This was not the peaceful first contact that scientists had hoped for. For 3,000 of your years, the Interstellar Council has maintained peace across the galaxy. 12 civilizations work together in harmony. We've ended wars, prevented conflicts, and guided lesser species toward enlightenment. The alien paused, and the crystals that formed its body seemed to darken. "But your species is different. You are violent. You are unpredictable. You spread across worlds like a plague, changing everything you touch. You cannot be trusted with the power you possess." Hyenwu activated his personal recorder. Earth's leaders needed to hear every word of this message. Therefore, the Council has reached a decision. Earth will submit to our authority. You have 30 standard days to comply with our demands. The image of Veltheri was replaced by a list of demands that made Hyenwu's heart sink. The aliens wanted humanity to give up everything that made them human. First, all human military forces must be disbanded. Every warship, every weapon. Every soldier would be surrendered to Council oversight. Earth's colonies would be governed by alien administrators. Human population growth would be limited to prevent overcrowding. Second, all terraforming operations beyond the Sol system must cease immediately. The 17 worlds that humans had spent generations making habitable would be returned to their natural states. Third, humanity must surrender all advanced technology to the Council. This included fusion reactors, quantum computers, and faster-than-light travel systems. Humans would be allowed to keep only basic tools necessary for survival. Fourth, human children would be educated in Council schools to learn proper behavior and respect for galactic law. Human culture and history would be replaced with Council-approved material. These terms are not negotiable. Veltheri's voice returned. Comply, and your species will be allowed to exist under our protection. Refuse, and face the consequences. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Hyenwu looked around at his crew. These were good people, brave. People who had devoted their lives to protecting Earth and its colonies. The thought of surrendering to alien masters made him sick. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "I am receiving priority messages from Earth Command, Luna Base, and all the colonies. Everyone got the same transmission." Hyenwu nodded grimly. "Patch me through to Earth Command immediately." Within minutes, he was connected to the Global Defense Council's emergency session. President Ji Hai Kim appeared on his screen, her face grave but determined. Around her, Hyenwu could see the faces of Earth's top military and civilian leaders. "Admiral Park," the president said, "I assume you've received the alien message." "Yes, Madam President. Every word of it. What is your assessment?" Hyenwu took a deep breath. "They are serious, ma'am. This is not a hoax or a test. We are facing a genuine threat from an advanced alien civilization. In the background, he could hear heated arguments among the council members. Some wanted to negotiate. Others demanded immediate military action. A few suggested finding a way to hide from the aliens entirely. Madam President, Haiyan Wu continued, I need to share something with you. During my years commanding deep space patrols, my crews have reported strange sightings. Ships that appeared on sensors but vanished when we investigated. Energy signatures that did not match any known technology. President Kim leaned forward. You think they have been watching us? I am certain of it. They know our capabilities, our weaknesses, our locations. This ultimatum is not the beginning of their involvement with humanity. It is the end of their observation period. The president was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke with a voice that reminded Haiyan Wu why she had been elected to lead. Earth Admiral, I want you to prepare a full tactical assessment. How many ships do we have? What are our defensive capabilities? How much time do we really have? Madam President, with respect, are we seriously considering fighting beings who can travel between stars? Admiral Park, I have spent my entire career fighting for human freedom and dignity. I did not become president to surrender those principles. 2 alien masters, no matter how advanced they might be. Haiyan Wu felt a surge of pride. This was why he had sworn an oath to protect Earth and its people. They were not just facing an alien threat. They were facing the choice between freedom and slavery. Understood, Madam President. I will have a complete report ready within 6 hours. As the connection ended, Haiyan Wu looked out at the stars. Through the command center's viewports, somewhere out there, alien ships were probably already moving toward Earth. The next 30 days would determine whether humanity would live free or die fighting. He activated the station's general communications system. All hands, this is Admiral Park. You have all heard the alien message. I want you to know that Earth will not surrender without a fight. We may be outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology we do not understand, but we are human. We have something they do not expect. He paused, thinking of all the battles humanity had fought throughout history. Against impossible odds, humans had always found a way to survive and prevail. We have each other, we have courage, we have the right to exist as free people. No alien council will take that from us. The die was cast. In 30 days, humanity would either submit to alien rule or face the consequences of defiance. Haiyan Wu knew which choice his people would make. 3 days after the alien ultimatum, President Ji-hai Kim stood in the Global Assembly Hall before representatives from every human colony and nation. The massive chamber was packed with delegates who had traveled from across the solar system and beyond. Some had come from Mars, others from the mining stations of Jupiter's moons, and a few from the distant colonies that took months to reach. The president looked out at the sea of faces. These people represented 8 billion humans on Earth and another 2 billion scattered across 17 worlds. All of them were waiting to hear what their leader would say about the alien threat. My fellow humans, President Kim began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber speakers, we stand at a crossroads in our history. An alien power has demanded our surrender. They want us to give up our freedom, our technology, our very right to exist as an independent species. The chamber was completely silent. Even the usual whispered conversations among delegates had stopped. Have spent the past 3 days consulting with our military leaders, our scientists, and our philosophers. I have read the reports from our intelligence services. I have studied every option available to us. She paused, looking directly into the cameras that would broadcast her words to every human settlement in known space. The Interstellar Council believes we are too dangerous to remain free. They think we are too violent, too unpredictable, too much of a threat to their perfect order. They may be right about one thing. We are dangerous, but not in the way they think. President Kim's voice grew stronger, more determined. We are dangerous to tyrants. We are dangerous to those who would enslave others. We are dangerous to anyone who believes that some beings are born to rule while others are born to serve. The first cheers began from the Earth's delegation. Within seconds, the The entire chamber was on its feet, applauding and shouting their approval. Therefore, President Kim continued, raising her hand for silence. I hereby reject the alien ultimatum in its entirety. Furthermore, I formally declare that humanity will not submit to alien rule under any circumstances. The cheering grew louder, but the president was not finished. More than that, I proclaim that humanity will actively resist this attempted conquest. If the Interstellar Council wants war, then war they shall have. We will fight for our freedom, our dignity, and our right to exist as equals in this galaxy. The declaration sent shockwaves through the chamber and across human space. This was not just a refusal to surrender. This was a declaration of war against an alien empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Within hours of the president's speech, Captain Min-ho Choi received new orders aboard his battleship Indomitable. The vessel was one of humanity's most advanced warships, equipped with fusion torpedoes and quantum armor plating. But even this mighty ship seemed small compared to the alien threat. Captain, his communications officer reported, we are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Multiple contacts, sir. They are huge. Minho studied the sensor readings on his command screen. The alien ships were unlike anything in human databases. They were enormous, some over 5 kilometers long, and their energy output was beyond anything humans had ever built. How many ships? Minho asked. At least 30, sir. Maybe more. They're maintaining position just outside Pluto's orbit.
I know, yeah.
Activated his ship's general communications system. All hands, this is the captain. We have contact with the alien fleet. Remember your training. Remember what we are fighting for. Today, we show these aliens that humans do not back down from a fight. The Indomitable was joined by 15 other human warships, forming the first battle group to face the alien threat. As they approached the enemy fleet, Minho could see the true scale of what they were facing. The alien ships were not just large. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and change color.
Sir.
His tactical officer reported, the alien ships are moving into formation. They are trying to surround us. Minho smiled grimly. Let them try. Helm, take us directly at their center formation. All ships, follow my lead. We are going to show them how humans fight. The battle began when the aliens fired first. Beams of purple energy lanced out from their ships, striking the human formation with devastating force. 2 human destroyers were destroyed instantly, their crews lost in brilliant explosions. But the humans did not retreat. Instead, they did something the aliens did not expect. They scattered in all directions, using random flight patterns that made them nearly impossible to target. Then they regrouped and attacked from multiple angles simultaneously. Sir, the tactical officer called out, their targeting systems cannot lock onto us. They are firing at where we were, not where we are. Minho realized that the aliens were used to fighting predictable enemies. Their weapons were designed for precise, calculated battles. But humans fought with chaos and instinct. All ships implement random evasion patterns. Do not follow any set course for more than 30 seconds. Make yourselves impossible to predict. The human ships danced around the alien fleet like angry wasps around a giant. They were vastly outnumbered, but their unpredictable movements made them nearly impossible to hit. When they did attack, they aimed for specific weak points on the alien ships, focusing their fire instead of spreading it out. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Sujin-Yoon was studying the alien transmission in her laboratory. As humanity's leading expert on alien biology, she was trying to understand their enemies better. Fascinating, she murmured, looking at the recorded image of Ambassador Velthari. Look at the way it moves. The hesitation before each action. It's the careful, measured speech patterns. Her assistant, a young researcher named Jamin, looked confused. What does that tell us, Doctor? It tells us that this species evolved as prey animals. Look at how it constantly scans its environment, how it pauses before making any sudden movements. These are the behaviors of a species that spent millions of years being hunted. Dr. Yoon pulled up comparison data from Earth's own evolutionary history. Most predator species are bold, aggressive, willing to take risks. But prey species are cautious, careful, always looking for danger. But doctor, if they are prey animals, how did they become the dominant force in the galaxy? Intelligence, Dr. Yoon replied. They survived by being smarter than their predators. They learned to build tools, to work together, to create technology that protected them. But they never lost their basic nature. She turned to her assistant, with excitement in her eyes. Do you understand what this means? They are not used to fighting predators. They're used to hiding from them or defending against them. But humans evolved as persistence hunters. We are the ultimate predators. Implications were staggering. The alien species that ruled the galaxy had never faced anything like humanity. They had built their empire by being more careful, more planned, more calculated than their enemies. But humans succeeded by being bold, unpredictable, and willing to take enormous risks. Back in space, Captain Minho's fleet was proving Dr. Yoon's theory correct. The alien ships were powerful, but they were also slow to react and predictable in their tactics. When the humans attacked from an unexpected angle, the aliens took precious seconds to reposition their defenses. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. They want to negotiate.
Ow.
Minho laughed out loud. Already? We have been fighting for less than an hour and they want to talk? What should I tell them, sir? Tell them that humans do not negotiate with would-be conquerors. If they want to talk, they can start by leaving our solar system. The alien response was swift and brutal. They launched a massive coordinated attack on the human fleet, using weapons that turned space itself into a weapon. But even this did not break human resolve. All ships, Minho broadcast, remember why we are here. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for every human child who deserves to grow up free. We are fighting for the right to exist as equals in this galaxy. The battle raged for 3 more hours. When it ended, half the human fleet was destroyed. But they had accomplished something remarkable. They had damaged several alien ships and forced the entire alien fleet to withdraw to a safer distance. Most importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humans would fight back. The age of easy conquest was over. 3 months had passed since the first battle. The Interstellar Council was beginning to realize they had made a terrible mistake. In the grand chambers of the Council's homeworld, 12 species sat in an emergency session, their voices filled with confusion and growing fear. How is this possible? Demanded Counselor Rethka, a tall being with multiple eyes that could see in several dimensions at once. The humans should have surrendered by now. Our calculations were perfect. Ambassador Velthari, the crystalline being who had delivered the original ultimatum, flickered with nervous energy. The humans do not follow logical patterns. They fight when they should surrender. They attack when they should defend. They risk everything for no apparent gain. While the council debated, Colonel Yansu Zheng was proving just how wrong their assumptions about humanity were. She stood on the bridge of a converted mining vessel, looking at the massive alien supply depot that hung in space before them. The depot was the size of a small moon, heavily defended, and considered impossible to attack. Are you certain about this plan, Colonel? Asked her second-in-command, Lieutenant Baeho Kim. We are flying civilian ships against military targets. Yansu smiled with the kind of confidence that had made her one of Earth's most successful military leaders. That is exactly why it will work. They expect us to attack with warships. They have planned defenses against military vessels. But who plans defenses against a mining ship? The converted mining vessel looked harmless enough. Its hull was painted with civilian markings, and its energy signature matched that of a standard commercial hauler. But hidden inside its cargo holds were enough explosives to level a city. Remember, Yansu told her crew, we are not just miners anymore. We are merchants carrying supplies to the outer colonies. Act nervous when they scan us. Make them think we are lost. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Humans would approach the depot pretending to be confused civilian vessels that had wandered into the wrong sector. The aliens would scan them, find nothing dangerous, and either ignore them or escort them away. Once they were close enough, the humans would reveal their true purpose. Incoming transmission, the communications officer reported. The depot is hailing us. An alien voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect human English. "Unknown vessels, you are entering a restricted military zone. State your business immediately." Yansu activated the communication system and put on her best frightened civilian voice. "This is Captain Park of the merchant vessel Lucky Star. We are carrying medical supplies to the Titan colony. Our navigation system is malfunctioning. We are lost." There was a long pause before the alien replied. "Maintain your current course. We are sending escort vessels to guide you to safety." "Thank you so much," Yansu replied, still pretending to be grateful. "We are so worried about pirates in this sector." As the alien escort ships approached, Yansu's crew prepared for the real mission. Hidden throughout the converted mining ships were hundreds of human volunteers, each carrying weapons and equipment designed to disable alien technology. Colonel whispered her demolitions expert. "The escort ships are within range." "Wait," Yansu ordered. "Let them get comfortable. Let them think we are helpless." The alien escorts took positions around the human vessels, treating them like any other civilian ships that had lost their way. This was their first mistake. The second mistake was not realizing that humans could turn anything into a weapon. "Now," Yansu commanded. The sides of the mining ships suddenly opened like flower petals. Instead of cargo containers, they revealed armed shuttles that launched immediately toward the alien depot. At the same time, the mining ships themselves activated hidden weapons systems and began firing at the escort vessels. But the real surprise came when the human shuttles reached the depot. Instead of trying to destroy it, they began attaching themselves to the outer hull. Within minutes, hundreds of human soldiers were cutting their way inside using industrial welding equipment. "Sir," an alien technician reported to the depot commander, "we have boarders. They're using some kind of cutting tool to penetrate our hull." The depot commander, a logical being who had never faced anything like this, consulted his tactical database. Impossible. No military force would attempt a boarding action against a fortified position. Send security teams to investigate. When the alien security forces arrived, they found something they had never encountered before. The humans were not trying to capture territory or hold positions. They were running through the depot's corridors, placing explosive charges on critical systems and then moving on before the aliens could react engineer. Sungmino was leading one of these assault teams, carrying a bag full of improvised explosives made from mining equipment. "Remember," he told his team, "we are not here to fight. You're here to break things. Hit the power systems first, then the communications, then the weapons." The aliens tried to stop them, but they were completely unprepared for this kind of warfare. Their security forces were trained to defend against conventional attacks, not against small groups of humans who appeared anywhere and everywhere at once. "How many boarders do we have?" the depot commander demanded. "Unknown, sir. They appear to be everywhere at once. Our security teams report contact, but when they arrive, the humans are already gone." Meanwhile, communications specialist Haiwan Shin was working on a different kind of mission. While the soldiers created chaos throughout the depot, she was quietly accessing the alien computer systems. Her job was not to destroy the depot, but to steal its secrets. "Got it," she whispered into her communicator. "I have access to their command network. Downloading tactical data now."
Oh.
The information she was stealing was invaluable. Fleet positions, supply routes, defensive plans, and most importantly, the locations of other alien installations. But she was also discovering something else that would change the war. "Colonel," she reported to Yansu, "you need to see this. The aliens have files on dozens of other species, but most of them are marked as enslaved or pacified." Yansu looked at the data streaming across her portable display. The Interstellar Council was not just a government, it was an empire built on the subjugation of other species. Many of the member civilizations were actually slaves, forced to serve the Council's will. "Can you contact any of these enslaved species?" Yansu asked. "I think so. The communication protocols are here. But Colonel, we need to leave soon. Aliens are bringing in reinforcements." The raid on the depot had been a complete success. The humans had destroyed critical systems, stolen valuable intelligence, and escaped with minimal casualties. But more importantly, they had shown the aliens that no target was safe from human ingenuity, as the converted mining ships fled back to human space. Admiral Jun Seok Nam was studying the results of the raid from his command ship. Gathered by Hai Wan Shin was already changing his understanding of the war. "So the Council is not a voluntary alliance?" he said to his staff. "It is a system of slavery held together by fear and superior technology." His tactical advisor, Commander Lee Soo Park, pointed to the star charts. "Sir, if we could make contact with these enslaved species, we might be able to turn them against the Council." Jun Seok nodded thoughtfully. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend, but first we need to prove to these species that the Council can be beaten. And we need to do it in a way that shows them humans are different from their previous masters." The opportunity came sooner than expected. During a routine patrol, Captain Yoon Ji-song's destroyer encountered an alien transport ship under attack. By Council forces, transport was clearly trying to escape, but the Council ships were systematically destroying it. Her communications officer reported, "We are receiving a distress signal from the transport. It is not in any Council language. I think it might be from one of the enslaved species." Yeonji faced a terrible choice. She could follow military protocol and avoid engagement with superior forces, or she could risk her ship and crew to save beings she had never met. "All hands, this is the captain. We are going to save that transport ship. I know this is not our fight, but it is the right thing to do. Any being that opposes the Council is a potential ally." The rescue mission was supposed to be simple. Drive off the Council ships, save the transport, and escape. But nothing about fighting the Council was ever simple. The Council ships were more advanced than anything in the human fleet. They had shields that could absorb tremendous damage and weapons that could destroy a human ship with a single hit. But they also had something that would prove to be their downfall. They had algorithms, "Sir," the tactical officer reported. "The enemy ships are using predictable attack patterns. They are following some kind of programmed sequence." Young-ji realized what was happening. The aliens had created computer programs to fight their battles for them. The programs were probably very effective against conventional opponents, but they could not adapt to human unpredictability. "All right," she announced to her crew, "we are going to do something no computer program can predict. We are going to ram them." The plan was insane. The human destroyer was tiny compared to the Council ships, and ramming one would almost certainly destroy both vessels. But it was also something that no logical mind would ever consider. "Captain," her helmsman asked, "are you serious?" "Completely, but we are not going to ram them to destroy them. We are going to ram them to save them." Yoonji ordered her crew to prepare for collision, but at the last second, she ordered the ship to veer away. The Council ship's defensive systems, programmed to respond to the ramming attack, had moved to intercept. This left them vulnerable to the real attack. A spread of torpedoes fired from point-blank range. The tactic worked perfectly. The Council ships were so focused on the suicidal ramming attack that they completely ignored the torpedo threat. 2 of them were destroyed and the 3rd fled in confusion. When the rescue was complete, Young-ji found herself face to face with the beings she had saved. They were called the Kethra, a species that had been enslaved by the Council for over 300 years. "Why did you save us?" their leader asked, through a translation device. "We are not your people. We cannot help you in your war." Yoonji looked at the alien being, seeing in its eyes the same desire for freedom that burned in every human heart. Because it was the right thing to do, so no being should be enslaved by another. Because if we do not help each other, who will? The Kethra leader was quiet for a long moment. Then it spoke words that would echo throughout the galaxy. "We have waited 300 years for someone to say those words. We will remember this day. We'll remember that humans fight not just for themselves, but for others."
The war was
changing. It was no longer just about human survival. It was about something much bigger, much more important. It was about freedom itself. 6 months after President Kim's declaration of war, the galaxy was witnessing something it had never seen before. The Interstellar Council, which had ruled unopposed for 3,000 years, was losing battles. Just losing. But being systematically outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive and chaotic, General Wu Jinbei stood in the war room of the new Human Command Center, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the Alpha Centauri system. The walls were covered with star charts, showing the locations of every known Council fleet, supply depot, and military installation. Red pins marked human victories, blue pins marked Council strongholds, and yellow pins marked the locations of enslaved species who had begun to rebel. Council is adapting, reported his intelligence chief, Major Dayun Ru. They are trying to copy our tactics, using more flexible formations and unpredictable attack patterns. Wu Jin smiled grimly. Let them try. They think chaos is something you can learn from a textbook. But chaos is not a tactic. It is a way of thinking, a way of being. You cannot copy what you do not understand. The general was about to prove his point in the most spectacular way possible. Intelligence reports indicated that the Council was massing a huge fleet in the Vega system, preparing for a massive assault on Earth itself. The fleet contained over 200 ships, including the Council's most advanced dreadnoughts. Sir asked his tactical advisor, how do we fight a fleet that size? You have maybe 50 ships in the entire human navy. We do not fight it, Wu Jin replied. We confuse it. We make it fight itself. We turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The plan he outlined was so audacious that several of his officers questioned his sanity. Instead of trying to defend against the Council fleet, the humans would attack it with a single ship. Not just any ship, but a vessel that would appear to be completely harmless until it was too late. Lieutenant Dayun Ru volunteered for the mission. She was young, brilliant, and completely fearless. More importantly, she understood something about alien psychology that most humans missed. The Council species think in terms of hierarchy, she explained to her small crew. They assume that important missions require big ships and large crews. The idea that one person in a small ship could threaten an entire fleet is literally impossible for them to comprehend. Her ship was a modified courier vessel, designed to look like a civilian craft carrying diplomatic messages. Hidden in its cargo hold was a piece of technology that the Council had never encountered, a human-built quantum virus, designed to infiltrate and corrupt their communication networks. Remember, Dayun told her crew as they approached the massive Council fleet, we are not warriors today. We are diplomats carrying a message of surrender from Earth's government. Act defeated. Act desperate. Make them think we have given up. The Council fleet was an impressive sight. Ships stretching for thousands of kilometers, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and bristling with weapons capable of destroying planets. At the center of the formation was the flagship, a massive vessel that housed the Council's supreme military commander. This is the diplomatic vessel Harmony requesting permission to approach. Dayun broadcast on standard diplomatic frequencies. We carry a message from Earth's government regarding terms of surrender. The response came quickly. The Council had been expecting this. Their intelligence suggested that human morale was breaking after months of warfare. A surrender offer was not only possible, it was inevitable. Diplomatic vessel, you are cleared to approach flagship Eternal Dominion. Maintain current speed and heading. Any deviation will be considered an act of aggression. Dayun smiled as she piloted her small ship toward the enormous flagship. The Council's mistake was assuming that humans thought like they did. They could not imagine that anyone would sacrifice themselves for a cause, especially not for people they had never met. Approaching the flagship now, she reported to her crew. Quantum virus is ready for deployment. Remember, we need to get close enough to establish a direct data link. As the small human ship approached, the Council flagship, thousands of alien officers watched on their screens. They saw exactly what they expected to see, a defeated enemy coming to negotiate their surrender. Sir, the flagship's communications. Officer reported the human vessel is requesting permission to dock. The Council commander, a being whose species had conquered a dozen worlds through superior technology and careful planning, nodded approvingly. Grant permission, but maintain full security protocols. Even defeated, humans can be unpredictable. Dayun's ship docked with the flagship exactly as planned. But instead of carrying diplomats, the ship carried something far more dangerous. A computer virus designed specifically to exploit the Council's reliance on networked systems. The moment the docking clamps engaged, Dune activated the virus. It spread through the flagship's computer systems like wildfire, copying itself into every connected device. Within minutes, it had infected the entire ship's network. "Sir," the flagship's technical officer reported, "we are experiencing some kind of system malfunction. Our computers are behaving strangely." But the real surprise came when the virus began to spread from ship to ship through the fleet's communication network. The Council's greatest strength, their ability to coordinate massive fleets through quantum communication, had become their greatest weakness. "What is happening?" the Council commander demanded as his screens began displaying random data. "Sir, it appears to be some kind of computer virus. It is spreading through our entire communication network. We are losing contact with other ships." Watched through her ship's sensors as the massive Council fleet began to tear itself apart. Ships that could no longer communicate with each other started firing on vessels they could not identify. The careful formations that had taken hours to establish dissolved into chaos as individual captains made their own decisions about friend and foe. All ships, Dayun, broadcast on human frequencies. "This is Lieutenant Rue. The virus has been deployed successfully. Council fleet is in complete disarray. Recommend immediate attack while they are confused." But the real genius of the plan was that no attack was necessary. The Council fleet was destroying itself. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Others fired on their own vessels when their identification systems began reporting false targets. Within 2 hours, the mighty Council fleet had been reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships, most of them fleeing in different directions. The greatest military force in galactic history had been defeated by a single human and a computer virus. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Kung Ho Ha was making a discovery that would change everything. The elderly scientist had been studying captured Council technology, trying to understand how their society had remained stable for so long. "It is remarkable," he said to his research team. "Every piece of Council technology is exactly the same as it was 1,000 years ago. They have not innovated, they have not improved, they have not changed anything." His assistant, Dr. Minjung Lee, looked confused. "But sir, how is that possible? Any technological society should continue to advance over time." Unless Dr. Ha replied, "They have convinced themselves that they have already achieved perfection. Look at this data, Council. Weapons, ships, computers, everything is built to exact specifications that have not changed in millennia." The implications were staggering. The Council had not just stopped innovating, they had made innovation illegal. Their entire society was based on the idea that change was dangerous, that improvement was unnecessary, that the old ways were always the best ways. "They are like a species that has stopped evolving," Dr. Ha continued. "They have become so focused on maintaining their current advantage that they have forgotten how to grow. But humans were still evolving, still growing, still changing. Every battle taught them something new. Every defeat made them stronger. Every victory showed them new possibilities. This was being proven in battles across the galaxy. Captain Soyoung Park had established contact with the Kethra, the warrior species that had been enslaved by the Council for centuries. But instead of trying to command them, she had done something unprecedented. She had asked them to teach. "Your people fight with honor," the Kethra leader Drekhar told her through a translation device. "But you fight with too much emotion.
Us.
You take unnecessary risks to save others." Soyoung laughed. "You say that like it is a bad thing. It is inefficient. Warriors who care too much about others make poor tactical decisions." "Maybe," Soyoung replied. "But warriors who care about others never fight alone."
Ow.
She was about to prove her point. Intelligence reports indicated that the Council was planning to execute a group of Kethra rebels who had been captured during a failed uprising. The execution was scheduled to take place on a Council prison world heavily defended and considered impregnable. "We cannot save them," Drekhar said flatly. "The prison is too well defended. We would lose too many warriors in the attempt." "Then we will not attack the prison," Soyoung replied. "We will make the prison come to us." The plan was typically human in its audacity. Instead of trying to break into the prison, Soyoung would broadcast a message across the galaxy, challenging the Council to a single combat between champions. If the humans won, the prisoners would be released. If the Council won, the humans would surrender a major colony. "This is madness," Drakkar protested. "The Council will never agree to such terms." "They will," Soyoung replied with confidence. "Because they cannot resist the chance to prove their superiority. Their pride will not allow them to refuse." She was right. The Council's response came within hours. They accepted the challenge, but with a twist. Instead of single combat, they proposed a battle between fleets. 10 Council ships against 10 human ships. Winner takes all. "They think they are being clever," Soyoung explained to her crew. "They believe that their superior technology will guarantee victory. But they are about to learn that technology means nothing without the will to use it properly." The battle took place in neutral space, with representatives from dozens of species watching. The Council fleet was magnificent. 10 identical ships, perfectly coordinated, executing maneuvers with mathematical precision. The human fleet was smaller, older, and appeared to be completely outmatched. But appearances can be deceiving. "Ships," Soyoung broadcast, "remember what we are fighting for. We are not just fighting for the Kethra prisoners. We are fighting for the idea that no being should be enslaved by another." The battle began with the Council ships moving into a classic formation, their weapons targeting the human vessels with deadly accuracy. But the humans did not try to match their precision. Instead, they did something that confused the Council completely. They began to work together in ways that made no logical sense. Ships that should have been protecting themselves instead moved to protect others. Captains who should have been seeking glory instead sacrificed their vessels to save their comrades. "Sir," the Council fleet commander reported, "the humans are not following any rational tactical doctrine. They're making decisions that benefit others at the expense of themselves." "Impossible," replied the Council observer. "No rational being would sacrifice their own survival for others." "God," continue the attack. But the Council had misunderstood something fundamental about human nature. The human ships were not just working together. They were working as a single organism. Each captain was willing to sacrifice their own ship if it meant the fleet as a whole could win. When the battle ended, only 3 human ships remained functional, but all 10 Council ships had been destroyed or disabled. The impossible had happened. Inferior technology had defeated superior technology through superior cooperation. "How?" the Council observer demanded. "How did they defeat us?" Soyoung's answer was broadcast across the galaxy. "We won because we fought for something bigger than ourselves. We fought for freedom. We fought for justice. We fought for the right of all beings to live without fear." The prisoners were released, but more importantly, the galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented. The Council, which had seemed invincible, had been defeated by beings who fought not for conquest, but for principle. Word of the human victory spread to every enslaved species in the galaxy. But on 100 worlds, beings who had given up hope began to dream of freedom once more. Of Council dominance was ending, and a new age was beginning. The second year of the war brought changes that no one in the galaxy could have predicted. In the Terran Command Center, Admiral Sang-Hoon Lee stood before a holographic display that showed something unprecedented in galactic history. 17 different alien species had joined forces with humanity to fight against the Interstellar Council. "This is remarkable," said Dr. Arakim, the human diplomat who had spent months learning to communicate with each species. 6 months ago, these civilizations were enemies who had been fighting each other for centuries. Now they are working together like old friends. The alliance was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Kethra brought their warrior traditions and knowledge of Council, military tactics. The Villani contributed their advanced medical technology and their understanding of Council psychology. The Zorthok shared their mining expertise and their network of hidden bases throughout Council space. But the most important contribution came from the humans themselves. They had introduced concepts that were completely foreign to most galactic civilizations: individual freedom, democratic decision-making, and the radical idea that all intelligent beings were equal regardless of their species or technological level. The Council species are panicking, reported Commander Junho Seo, who had been monitoring Council communications. Their own subject species are rebelling on dozens of worlds. They're losing control of their empire. Admiral Sang-hoon smiled as he studied the tactical displays. They built their power on fear and technological superiority.
Wow.
But once people stop being afraid and start working together, technology alone is not enough. The proof of this was happening across the galaxy. Council overseers were being overthrown by their own workers. On the agricultural planet of Morden, farmers were destroying the automated systems that had enslaved them for generations. In the asteroid mining fields of the Outer Rim, entire populations were declaring independence. But the real test of the new alliance came when Council forces launched a massive counterattack against the rebel worlds. The Council had assembled their largest fleet ever, over 500 ships carrying enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems. They are heading for the Kethra homeworld, reported the intelligence officer. If they reconquer the Kethra, they will break the spirit of the entire rebellion. Admiral Sang-hoon knew that this was the moment that would decide the war. If the alliance could not protect its own members, it would fall apart. But if they could defeat the Council's greatest fleet, it would prove that the old order was truly finished. Send word to all alliance ships, he ordered. We are going to make our stand at Kethra Prime. Every ship, every fighter, every being who believes in freedom will be there. The response was immediate. Ships began arriving from across the galaxy, each one carrying crews that had never fought together before. Human destroyers flew alongside Kethra battlecruisers. Alani medical ships worked with Zorthok mining. Vessels that had been converted into fighters, Dr. Eric Kim, worked tirelessly to coordinate between the different species. Each one had their own way of fighting, their own tactical doctrines, their own ideas about how battles should be conducted. The Kethra want to charge directly at the enemy, she reported to Admiral Sang-hoon. The Vellani prefer defensive formations. The Zorthok want to use guerrilla tactics. How do we make them work together? We do not make them work together, the Admiral replied. We let them work together, give each species the freedom to fight in their own way, but toward a common goal. This was the revolutionary concept that humans brought to galactic warfare. Instead of forcing everyone to follow the same plan, they created a framework where each species could contribute their unique strengths. When the Council fleet arrived at Kethra Prime, they expected to face a traditional defense. What they found, instead, was something that had never existed before. A truly multi-species alliance where each member fought according to their own nature while supporting the others. The Kethra ships charged directly at the Council fleet, air crews howling, ancient battle cries. But instead of charging alone, they were supported by human ships that provided covering fire and Vellani vessels that supplied medical support. The Zorthok used their mining ships to attack from unexpected angles, appearing from behind asteroids, and space debris that the Council had thought was harmless. The Vellani used their knowledge of Council psychology to predict enemy movements and warn their allies, but the humans provided something even more important: inspiration. They flew into impossible situations to rescue damaged Allied ships. They shared their supplies with species they had known for only months. They treated every member of the alliance as equals, regardless of their technology or military contribution. Sir, reported a Kethra captain to his human counterpart, your ship is badly damaged. You should withdraw to safety. The human captain. Commander Park Min-seok laughed, despite the sparks flying around his bridge. We are not going anywhere, friend. We stand together or we fall together. This kind of loyalty was something the Council had never encountered. Their own forces were held together by fear and obedience, but the alliance was held together by something much stronger: genuine friendship and mutual respect. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it ended, the Council fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind dozens of destroyed ships and thousands of prisoners. But more importantly, they left behind the shattered remains of their reputation for invincibility. news of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On worlds that had been enslaved for centuries, beings who had never dreamed of freedom began to believe that change was possible, but the victory at Kethra Prime was only the beginning. The Alliance had proven it could defend itself. Now it was time to take the offensive. "We have a choice," Admiral Sang-hoon told the Alliance leaders during their next meeting. "We can be content with protecting what we have won, or we can finish this war by liberating every enslaved world in the galaxy." The decision was unanimous. The Alliance would not stop until every being in the galaxy was free. The campaign that followed became known as the Liberation War. Alliance fleets moved from system to system, not conquering, but liberating. They offered freedom to every species, technology to those who needed it, protection to those who could not protect themselves. But the most important thing they offered was hope. For the first time in thousands of years, the weak did not have to fear the strong. The small did not have to bow to the large. Every being had the right to determine their own destiny. Commander Jun Ho-seo led many of these liberation missions, working with mixed crews that included dozens of different species. "It is amazing," he reported to Admiral Sang-hoon. "Some of these worlds have been enslaved for so long that they have forgotten what freedom looks like. But once they remember, they fight harder than anyone." The Council's response was predictable. They tried to destroy what they could not control. They launched attacks on civilian targets, hoping to terrorize the Alliance into submission. They used weapons that violated every rule of civilized warfare. But every Council atrocity only strengthened the Alliance's resolve. Species that had been neutral joined the rebellion. Worlds that had been loyal to the Council declared independence. Even some Council species began to question whether their empire was worth preserving. The end came sooner than anyone expected. On the Council's homeworld, the ruling elite found themselves surrounded by their own people, demanding change. Empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years collapsed, not from external pressure, but from internal revolution. "We are receiving a transmission from the Council homeworld," reported the communications officer. "They are requesting terms for surrender." Admiral Sang-hoon looked around at the Alliance leaders who had gathered on his flagship. Representatives of dozens of species, all working together toward a common goal. This was what the galaxy could become, not a hierarchy of rulers and subjects, but a community of equals. "Tell them we will accept nothing less than complete liberation of all enslaved worlds," he replied. "Tell them the age of empires is over. The age of freedom has begun." The war was ending, but the real work was just beginning. Galaxy where all beings were equal would be harder than winning any battle. But as Admiral Sang-hoon looked at the diverse group of beings around him, he knew it was possible. Humans had not just won a war, they had changed the nature of Galactic civilization itself. The war that had begun with an alien ultimatum ended in the most unexpected way possible. There was no final battle, no dramatic last stand, no climactic confrontation between good and evil. Instead, the Interstellar Council simply collapsed. Under the weight of its own contradictions, Admiral Hyun-woo Park, the same man who had received the original alien ultimatum 3 years earlier, now stood on the bridge of his flagship as it approached the Council's capital world. Around him flew ships from 47 different species, all united under the banner of the Liberation Alliance. His communications officer reported, "We are receiving surrender transmissions from Council installations throughout the system. They are requesting immediate ceasefire and negotiation of terms." Hyun-woo looked out at the massive space stations and defensive platforms that had once seemed so intimidating. Now they hung silent in space, their weapons powered down, their crews waiting to learn their fate. "Open a channel to all Council forces," he ordered. "This is Admiral Park of the Terran Liberation Fleet. You have requested terms for surrender. We accept. But understand this. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to free you." The words echoed through space,
Ow.
reaching millions of beings who had spent their entire lives serving an empire built on fear and oppression. For many of them, the concept of liberation was so foreign that they could not understand what the humans meant. On the surface of the council capital world, President Ji-Hai Kim walked through the halls of the ancient government complex, where 12 species had once ruled the galaxy. The corridors were filled with the artwork and treasures of 1,000 conquered worlds, each piece a reminder of civilizations that had been forced to submit to council authority. "It is remarkable," said Dr. Sujin Yoon, who was accompanying the president on her inspection. "This entire building is a monument to oppression. Every beautiful thing here was taken from someone else." President Kim stopped before a massive crystal sculpture that depicted the original founding of the council. 12 species standing together in apparent harmony, but she could see now what she had missed before. 11 of the species were looking up at the 12th with expressions of fear and submission. "We will change this," she said quietly. "But not by destroying it. We will transform it into something better, a symbol of what the galaxy can become when all beings work together as equals." The task of rebuilding galactic civilization fell to people like General Taehan Lee, who found himself in charge of creating a new military structure that could protect the Alliance without becoming a tool of oppression. "The old council military was designed to enforce obedience," he explained to his staff. "Our forces must be different. They must be protectors, not conquerors. Guardians, not rulers." The challenge was enormous. How do you create a military force powerful enough to maintain peace across hundreds of worlds, but democratic enough to remain accountable to the people it serves? The answer came from an unexpected source: the former council species themselves. Many of their military officers were horrified to learn how their empire had really functioned. They had believed they were maintaining galactic peace, not enforcing slavery. "I spent my entire career following orders," said one former council admiral during the reorganization talks. "I thought we were protecting civilization. I never realized we were destroying it." These officers became some of the most dedicated members of the new Galactic Defense Force. They understood better than anyone the dangers of unchecked military power, and they were determined to ensure that their mistakes would never be repeated. Commander Chang Minyu was appointed to head the new Defense Force Academy, where officers from dozens of species would learn to work together. Its first class included humans, Kethra, former council species, and representatives from worlds that had just gained their freedom. "You are not here to learn how to conquer," he told his students on their first day. "You are here to learn how to protect. You are not here to enforce the will of the strong. You are here to defend the rights of the weak." The principles he taught were based on human concepts that had proven so effective during the war: individual dignity, collective responsibility, and the idea that true strength comes from helping others rather than dominating them. But building a new military was only part of the challenge. The galaxy also needed new laws, new governments, and new ways of resolving conflicts between species that had been enemies for generations. Dr. Era Kim found herself working with legal scholars from across the galaxy to create the Terran Accords, a new constitution that would govern relations between all free species. The document was unlike anything that had ever existed in galactic history. The Council's laws were about control, she explained to the Constitutional Convention. "Our laws must be about freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to live without fear, to grow without limit, to reach for the stars without asking permission from anyone." The debates were intense. Some species wanted strong central authority to prevent future wars. Others demanded complete independence to govern themselves as they saw fit. It took months of discussion to find a balance that everyone could accept. The final document established the Galactic Federation, a voluntary association of free worlds united by common principles rather than shared rulers. Each species would govern itself according to its own traditions, but all would agree to respect the basic rights of individual beings and to cooperate in defending those rights. The signing ceremony took place on New Geneva Station, a massive space habitat built in neutral territory. Representatives from every free species in the galaxy gathered to witness the birth of a new era. Today, President Kim said as she placed her signature on the document, "We declare that the age of empires is over. No being will ever again be forced to serve masters they did not choose." No world will ever again be conquered by those who claim the right to rule others. But the real test of the new order came not in grand ceremonies, but in everyday interactions between species that had spent centuries fearing and fighting each other. On worlds throughout the galaxy, former enemies had to learn to live and work together. Dr. Sujin Yoon established the Interspecies Research Institute, where scientists from dozens of civilizations collaborated on projects that would benefit everyone. The first major breakthrough came when human creativity combined with Vellani medical knowledge to develop treatments for diseases that had plagued multiple species for millennia. "This is what the galaxy was meant to be," she said, as she watched researchers from 6 different species working together in perfect harmony. Not a hierarchy where the strong dominate the weak, but a community where everyone contributes their unique gifts. The changes were visible everywhere. On trade stations that had once been restricted to council species, beings from across the galaxy now worked side by side. Former slave worlds became prosperous trading partners. Species that had been mortal enemies discovered they had more in common than they had ever imagined. But perhaps the most important changes were the smallest ones. In schools throughout the galaxy, children who would have grown up as slaves or servants now learned that they could become anything they dreamed of being. Young beings who had never seen members of other species except as masters or enemies now played together as friends. The final scene that would define the new Galactic order took place on New Geneva Station 5 years after the war's end. Admiral Hyen Woo Park, now retired from military service, was walking through the station's central plaza when he stopped to watch a group of children playing together. There was a young human girl teaching a Kethra boy how to play hopscotch. A Vellani child was showing others how to create beautiful light patterns with her natural abilities. Former council species youngsters were learning games from worlds they had never heard of before the war. "Amazing, is it not?" said a voice behind him. Park turned to see Drekar, the Kethra leader who had become one of his closest friends during the war. The old warrior was watching the children with wonder in his eyes. 5 years ago, these species were either enemies or strangers, Drekar continued. Now their children play together as if they had always been friends. Park nodded, thinking about how far they had all come. "This is what we fought for, not just victory in battle, but this, the right of all beings to live in peace and friendship." "Your species gave us a great gift," Drekar said. "You showed us that strength is not about dominating others. It is about protecting them. You proved that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, but turning them into friends." As they watched the children play, Park reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had started the war as a single species facing extinction. They had ended it as the founders of the largest voluntary alliance in galactic history. But more than that, they had fundamentally changed what it meant to be powerful in the galaxy. The old council had ruled through fear and technology. New Federation governed through cooperation and mutual respect. The children finished their games and began to scatter, heading home to dozens of different worlds. But Park knew they would remember this day. Remember playing with beings from other species. Remember learning that differences were something to celebrate rather than fear. "Sir," said a young Federation officer who had approached while they were watching, "the new exploration fleet is ready to depart. They are asking if you would like to say a few words to the crews." Park looked up at the docking bays where ships from every member species were preparing to leave on the first joint exploration mission in galactic history. They would travel beyond the borders of known space, seeking new worlds and new civilizations to invite into the Federation. "Tell them," Park said, "that they carry with them the hopes and dreams of every free being in the galaxy. Tell them to remember that they represent not conquerors, but explorers, not masters, but friends. Elven, that whatever they find out, there in the darkness between stars, they should offer the same gift that humanity once offered to us, the chance to be free." As the exploration fleet departed, Park realized that this was not the end of humanity's story in the galaxy. It was just the beginning. The war had proven that humans could fight for their freedom. Now they would prove that they could help others find theirs. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities that no one had ever imagined. And for the first time in galactic history, all beings would face those possibilities together, as equals, as friends, as members of the greatest community the universe had ever seen. The Age of Freedom had truly begun.